What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for July 14, 2023. I am Graham Jason Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying your weekend so far. Another solid SmackDown this week, I thought. Not as electric as last week's show in Madison Square Garden. I'm biased because I was there, but still a good show last night, I thought, overall. I did appreciate how they flipped the script from last week. Last week's show was very much, as you could probably tell, Bloodline dominated. They took up that entire first 35, 40 minutes of the show. They even had the closing show segment as well with Roman and Jey and Solo and whatnot. They pretty much took up half of that show last week, and I'm not complaining. Both segments were great. That opening segment specifically was awesome. Really well done. Didn't even feel like 35, 40 minutes. But they were not nearly as over this show as last week. And I actually appreciated that because instead they kind of flipped the script and gave that screen time and television time to the women. The women last week got almost no time. They had one very quick segment with Charlotte, Bianca, Asuka, Bayley, and Io all brawling and kind of furthering the WWE Women's Championship picture. They were all over this show. They were in the opening segment. Bayley had a match in the middle, and we had the main event as well, was the WWE Women's Championship match between Bianca Belair and Asuka. So they were all over the show, not nearly as captivating as last week's Bloodline segments, but each segment, which I'll get into, kind of furthered the bottom line of what the Women's Championship picture is right now and what we're very likely headed towards with the triple-threaded SummerSlam between Belair, Charlotte, and Asuka. But again, I liked how they were all over the show. We had various backstage segments, setting up the SummerSlam match and whatnot. So again, not the strongest segments on the show, I thought, but still well done. And they opened and closed the night, so it was better than what we got from the women last week, which was fine, but we got very little of the women last week, and they kind of made up for it a bit more this week, which I appreciated. But overall, though, a good show. Let's start with the opening segment. Charlotte Flair confronting Bianca Belair, who made it known that she has yet to get her one-on-one rematch for the Women's Championship. She was already scheduled to face Asuka on that show. On this show, this was not an impromptu match between Asuka and Bianca in the main event. That was already announced, but we got some more mic time from Bianca, though. Her and Charlotte did not brawl here. They shook hands. They showed respect towards one another. Bianca got involved in Charlotte's match last week, and she was going to leave the arena before she found out that Bayley and Io would be ringside and could be attempting to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase, so she ended up sticking around. But in this segment specifically, nothing really out of the ordinary, but just the two kind of subtly teasing tension and setting up and planting the seeds for a future match between the two. Now, at SummerSlam, like I said, we're very likely to get that triple threat, and then coming out of that, get Charlotte and Bianca one-on-one. That should be the direction they go in. Bianca and Charlotte does not need to be for the championship. Asuka feels like an afterthought right now, but she should escape that feud with the championship. They're probably doing this on purpose, I would imagine. Not to give them credit, but I would imagine Charlotte and Bianca being the focal point is the point because they want Asuka to seem like an underdog of sorts, and then when she wins, it's all that more surprising. Not the best way to book your champion, and Asuka is obviously established, but they could do a better job of making her feel like she's on the same level as these two women from a booking standpoint, but still, solid segment here, accomplished what it needed to. The first match in the show saw Pretty Deadly beat the Brawling Brutes represented by Sheamus and Ridge Holland. Pretty Deadly just keep on rolling, man. They cost Sheamus the United States Championship last week against Austin Theory. So I'm thinking, okay, they've been feuding with the Brutes now for about 2 months. They beat the Brawling Brutes in their debut match on SmackDown, that being Ridge Holland and Butch, I think back in May. They beat Sheamus and Ridge in the Tag Team Turmoil match a couple of weeks after that to become the number one contenders for the tag team titles. They cost Sheamus the United States Championship last week. They themselves failed to become tag team champions, their first loss on the main roster. They beat the Profits as well, not to forget about that. In a very quick match, but still a win is a win. They cost Sheamus the championship last week. You would think Sheamus would give them their comeuppance here. He did not. They lost again. And again, I'm not complaining. The Pretty Deadly is the team they should be building up. I like the Brawling Brutes. They're a good team. They're a good faction. Sheamus is essentially in stepping stone mode right now, which is a bummer because I feel like he really should have been the one, and he was a victim of the brand split in the draft, and that he ended up on SmackDown. Gunther went to Raw. he really should have been the one to beat Gunther for that championship. Now, I understand they wanted to keep the belt on Gunther, and if he doesn't break the record, then what the fuck was the point of keeping the belt on him for as long as they have since WrestleMania, when they could have just given the championship to Sheamus at WrestleMania? But Sheamus should have been the guy. There's really, honestly, no one on Raw, to me, that should be the one to beat Gunther other than Sheamus, who was on SmackDown. So that's not happening. I didn't want Sheamus to beat Austin Theory for that championship, but it feels like he's just putting over other people right now. He put over Theory twice. He put over Pretty Deadly here. He's probably losing that 4-way next week, as he should. He's over, and people like Sheamus, but he's in that enhancement level right now, which, you know, it's not a bad thing. The guy's 45 years old. I mean, it was bound to happen at some point. I just thought they could have capitalized on the momentum he had as a babyface by putting the fucking Intercontinental Championship on him, but again, silly me, I guess. This was a good match, though. Well worked. Pretty Deadly goes over. Happy to see it. They keep winning matches, which is great, and another way to get him over. I think they came out with a disco ball, too, by the way. I thought it was a CGI disco ball. I looked away when they made their entrance. Unless this is something that's already been happening on SmackDown in recent weeks, and I tend to skip over the entrances if I don't watch live, which is most weeks. But I think this was a new thing, and they came out with a disco ball hovering over the ring, which is kind of a cool touch. Bayley took on Zelina Vega, and she beat Zelina Vega. Very quick match, kind of a nothing match. The focus wasn't really on the match, though. It was designed to give Bayley a win and to set up what happened afterward. Shotzi, who we have not seen on SmackDown in 2 weeks, and the last time we saw Shotzi on SmackDown was the SmackDown before Money in the Bank. She faced Bayley in that Money in the Bank qualifier. Bayley put her spot in the ladder match on the line. Bayley won, as expected. That was obvious, but Bayley then backstage alongside Io Sky cut Shotzi's hair. Not all of it, but like a lock of her hair. They don't typically do that. I mean, she legitimately cut her hair. So, if it was... I mean, I guess Sonya did that to Mandy and nothing really came out of it. They were going to have a hair versus hair match at SummerSlam, but they, backtracked on that because the whole arrest happened, and not that Sonya was arrested, but that break-in happened, the home invasion shit, so they changed the stipulation. But they typically don't cut people's hair unless Shotzi's hair was just an extension. I'm a guy, I have no fucking clue what the difference is. I know what an extension is, but I can't tell the difference sometimes right off the bat between actual hair and an extension, so excuse me. But I figured because Shotzi got her hair cut that she would probably come back with a different look, and that's exactly what's happening, actually. So Shotzi was shown on the Titantron here, and she was in complete manic mode, and she shaved her own head. And I think it's a look that works for Shotzi. Apparently the story behind this happening is, obviously they used it for an angle as they should. I always hate when people come out with their head completely shaved for not that people can't shave their head, but it's like, why not use that in an angle where they either had to have their head shaved or the heel shaved for them or whatever the reason is. I always thought that was weird. But it happened here apparently because Shotzi has a sibling, I think a sister, currently dealing with cancer. So she shaved her head in solidarity, which is great. I mean, it's obviously awful she's dealing with cancer, but it's very nice of her to do that. And it's cool they used it in an angle. So it looks like they're going the full psycho route with Shotzi, and I say psycho because they use that in her theme song. I'm a psycho, and there's really nothing psycho about Shotzi. I mean, she does some pretty dumb spots sometimes that don't really pay off, and they look clumsy, and they don't look great, and she's had a lot of botches in her main roster run, and that's coming from someone who likes Shotzi. She seems really nice, and she, had a great thing going in NXT. I don't know if they called her up too soon or whatever, but she hasn't exactly clicked on the main roster. She's been in the main roster now for 2 years. She was one of those people that was not fired during that round of releases in late 2021. By all means, you would think that she probably would have been, but she wasn't. They turned her heel, which was dumb. But then, they turned her back babyface, which was great. They gave her tank back. Not her last name, but they gave her tank back and made her a babyface, but she still hasn't exactly clicked. She doesn't win a lot of matches. People don't really care about Shotzi. Will this get people to care about Shotzi? I don't know. I'm not going to say it won't work. It's worth the shot. I'm glad to see them doing something significant with her, which they haven't, not to say they haven't before, because they have. I mean, they've put her in the title picture a couple different times. She's been in the tag team title picture a couple different times. I know it was all short-lived, but it's nice to see actual character development with Shotzi. So I thought this was a step in the right direction. This is obviously leading to a short-lived Bayley and Shotzi feud, or a damage control Bayley, Io Sky, Shotzi feud, or whatever the hell it might be. But it's cool. I thought it was well done, and we'll see what happens from here. We had another highlight from the show here, the one of two highlights. I mean, the entire show I thought was pretty good, but this was one of the bigger highlights in the show. Unsurprisingly, Jey Uso on the warpath to Roman Reigns. Now, spoiler alert, the match was not made official for SummerSlam. Jey Uso and Roman Reigns was not officially confirmed here. Roman Reigns was not on the show. He will be back next week in what they're calling the Rules of Engagement. I assume they're saying that because Jey Uso is going to have to adhere by some dumb rules by Roman in order for him to challenge for the championship at SummerSlam. But instead here we got some great mic work from Jey, from Paul, from Solo, all kind of going back and forth. Jey ended up getting the better of the two, laid out Solo with a chair, and even attacked Paul Heyman, and the crowd went wild for that. Heyman does not take a lot of bumps. He got F5 through a table by Brock last year at SummerSlam. That kind of gave him his comeuppance because Brock, remember, he was betrayed by Heyman many months earlier at Royal Rumble. And I don't think he ever ended up giving Heyman his comeuppance. I think he almost attacked him at WrestleMania, but he never actually went through with it. But he did at SummerSlam, and Heyman was off the show for like a month to 6 weeks. And he was, obviously he's been back ever since, but he hasn't taken any physical abuse, I think, since then, has Heyman on the show, which is great because that means it means more when he does get attacked. So he attacked Paul Heyman here as well as Solo Sikoa, along with Solo Sikoa. Jey Uso again standing tall. This was really good stuff. I mean, I can't really say much about the mic work itself other than the fact it was great. But they furthered the feud along. Again, Jey Uso very clearly challenging Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. They now just have to make it official. But this did progress the storyline nicely, and they made the most of their chance to kind of fill the television time here and progress the feud. So I really liked it. The other highlight from the show came right afterward, actually. The best bout on the show by a wide margin. A fatal four-way match. Now, they're having a United States Championship Invitational, the Austin Theory Invitational, they're calling it. And they're going to have two fatal four-way matches, one on this show and then one next week. The winners of those two fatal four-way matches will face off in 2 weeks with the opportunity to eventually challenge Austin Theory for the United States Championship on the line. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because WWE did the exact same fucking thing 2 months ago. Now, it is one way of crowning a contender. We're getting fun matches out of it. That's great. But did we not already... I guess they were triple threats and not four ways. But it sounds a lot like what we got in the World Heavyweight Championship tournament a couple months ago, where we had, I think it was 2 triple threats and then the semifinals on Raw and then semifinals on SmackDown. So technically it was like 12 people in the tournament. I guess this is also 12 people. Or no, it's 8 people, because we have 4 people this week, 4 people next week. Whatever, but it seems very similar to me. But regardless, the matches are fun, so I can't complain too much. With Santos Escobar beating Grayson Waller, AJ Styles, Butch, all 4 working really well together. Great chemistry here. The real surprise was not only Waller losing, but Waller getting pinned by Escobar. I wasn't expecting that. Escobar going over, happy for him. Him facing Theory would be fine. I mean, it's really got to be LA Knight, who we'll get to in a second. I mean, LA Knight should be a fucking shoo-in to challenge Theory next and take that fucking title. And maybe Escobar wins the thing, and maybe they'll do what they did with Riddle and Gunther, where you would think Riddle would have won that number 1 contenders battle royal a couple of months ago, and then it was Ali instead, and Ali got the shot, but they saved Riddle for a later date. Maybe they'll do the same thing here, and they'll have Escobar win the whole thing, and he'll challenge Theory, and he'll lose, and then LA Knight will go on to face Theory at another point. That's possible. I mean, I would just get right the fuck to it. Theory's been champion for far too long now. His reign's been an afterthought. But regardless, Escobar winning here was a surprise. No issue with that. I just didn't think Waller needed to be pinned. Maybe, I guess, because he's a heel, and they wanted the heel to be pinned. I don't know why you just wouldn't have him pin Butch. Like, who gives a shit about Butch at this point? And I like Butch. I like all 4 of these guys. I would just think Waller coming off that performance against Edge last week, and where he also lost there as well, and I was completely fine with that. Why would you then have him lose again? And if you are going to have him lose again, why have him get pinned in a match where he doesn't have to be pinned? That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. He did acknowledge his interaction with The Rock on Twitter on this show. He mentioned how he got The Rock's attention. I don't really think there's anything else to that. It would be cool if there was, if The Rock was all of a sudden free, and he made an appearance at SummerSlam to confront fucking Grayson Waller. That would be sick. I've heard nothing along of this sort at all. But that would be interesting if they wanted to capitalize off that and do a Waller-Rock exchange at the pay-per-view. I'd be completely down with that. But this was still well done, and we'll see what the future holds for Waller. But Escobar is advancing to the number one contenders match in 2 weeks as part of this United States Championship Invitational on SmackDown. I mentioned LA Knight. He came out next, so we heard from each competitor in next week's four-way, which is going to involve Sheamus, Rey Mysterio, Cameron Grimes, who I don't think we've seen on SmackDown in weeks since his match with Baron Corbin was cut from SmackDown 2 weeks ago. Don't think he's been on SmackDown since. But LA Knight was the fourth man. He was the only one that got a promo in front of the audience, and the crowd went nuts. He was not on SmackDown last week. He was in the dark segment before the show, attacking Hit Row, a segment that got over a fucking million views on Twitter. I mean, it was a dark segment. I checked earlier today, the segment from last night where he cut a promo for 2 minutes got 500,000 views. LA Knight is over right now, and it's showing in the numbers. His merch is selling. I mean, this is one of the most organic rises I've seen for any WWE superstar in the last 10 years, along with Daniel Bryan. I mean, Daniel Bryan got so popular in front of actual audiences from week to week, but his merch was also selling, and he was, becoming a big thing online. The same success is being had right now by LA Knight. So it's great to see, and now it's just up to WWE to capitalize. And if LA Knight wasn't going to win the Money in the Bank ladder match, which is fine, he should become the United States champion. So he mentioned that here. He wants to win the whole thing. The crowd was super behind him, one of the most over guys in the entire show. So it was what it was. He announced his intentions to become champion. He said his mission statement, and now he's got to become champion. I don't know how the fuck he doesn't win that four-way next week. Maybe someone cost him the match. That's kind of what I'm expecting. So who did I say was in the match? LA Knight, Cameron Grimes, Sheamus, and Rey Mysterio. SmackDown sure does have a lot of fucking baby faces. I mean, the four-way earlier in the show, Escobar, AJ, Butch, and Waller also had one heel in it. And this match coming up next week, I guess Knight never really had a babyface turn, but he's so fucking over, how do you not turn him babyface? So, I don't know, maybe Escobar goes heel on the whole thing and they turn LWO heel, I'm not exactly sure. But LA Knight is a babyface. You can't convince me otherwise. And he really should win the whole thing, but maybe they do something next week where Waller cost Knight the match and they kind of rekindle their rivalry from NXT. Very possible. But good promo there. We then we then saw Bobby Lashley make his return to SmackDown in a backstage segment. Not backstage exactly, but he picked up the Street Profits in a limo. Now, this was very random. I thought it would just lead to the Bobby Lashley limo arrival and whatever. No, but the Profits were there, and again, I thought they would just be there to be there, and that they wouldn't really interact with Bobby, and that would be it. No, Bobby invited them into his limo, and then they drove off. So, I don't want to get too excited about this. There has been various storylines and teases during the Triple H era of this might be on the horizon, and then they don't do it, and then it just collapses and we never hear about it again. Case in point, the Hurt Business shit involving Lashley. There were a lot of teases for a Hurt Business reunion, and then it was dropped around WrestleMania, and we haven't seen it since. And I don't think we're going to. Now, we might, just with the Profits taking the role of Cedric and Shelton, which is a bummer because they were perfect for that group. But it looks like we might be getting a Hurt Business reunion after all, just with different members. So, just an idea. We'll find out where this is going, if anywhere. Thought it would be something I'd mention, though, because I thought it was intriguing, and it's great to see Bobby back on the show. We have not seen Bobby on SmackDown in over 2 months. I don't know if the idea was we'll hold Bobby off until Bray's ready to come back, and we'll do Bobby and Bray again. No fucking thank you. I mean, that sounds terrible. So, if that's the idea, I mean, I heard Bray might still be sick. Fightful, I think, said that he's still dealing with whatever illness that kept him out of WrestleMania, which is kind of concerning. I mean, he's been out now for 4 months, so if he's still ill from whatever he was suffering from 4 months ago and he's not injured, that's not good. So, hopefully he's okay. The main event on this show, Bianca Belair challenging Asuka, as mentioned earlier, for the WWE Women's Championship. Quality match here, just not on the same level as their WrestleMania match, surely, and not even their Night of Champions match, which wasn't as good. This was a good television main event, but it played out predictably. You knew Bianca wasn't going to win, and Charlotte accidentally speared Bianca, so Bianca won by DQ, but not the championship. So again, it was kind of hard to get excited about a match that you knew wasn't going to have a, formal ending here, or a clean ending, or that Bianca wasn't going to win, whatever. So again, it was good, but these two women are capable of far better. But then again, like I said, Charlotte accidentally spearing Bianca by accident. I said that twice, I apologize. Io again attempting to cash in Money in the Bank, but being thwarted by Bianca and Charlotte. So you would think if if Io's, teasing it multiple times, you would think a cash-in might be inevitable. It might be coming on the sooner side as opposed to later on. If they do the triple threat at SummerSlam, I'd be completely fine with Asuka retaining and then Io cashing in at that point and becoming champion. I mean, personally, I would hold off on the cash in until later on, save Asuka and Io for WrestleMania. I don't think they're going to do that. They're probably going to do it on the sooner side. I would do Io and Asuka as the, Mania match and do Io and Bayley in the meantime, but it doesn't look like that's likely. But still, I thought this was fine for what it was. It set forward the match for SummerSlam, not made official, but it's pretty obvious where this is headed. Bianca, Asuka, and Charlotte in a triple threat at SummerSlam. Do not put Io in there. It makes no sense. Not that it doesn't make sense, but she already has the fucking briefcase. She wouldn't want to cash in a four-way. That would be dumb. And she shouldn't be in there without cashing in the contract and just be in the match just to be in the match. It's fucking stupid. So just make it the triple threat. Have Asuka retain. Have Bianca and Charlotte break off into their own feud and call it a day. But a thumbs up SmackDown, I thought overall, not the greatest show of all time, but we got LA Knight on the show. That's a positive. A lot of focus for the women. Main event was good. No complaints there. The four-way was a lot of fun. The Jey Uso, Solo, Sikoa, Paul Heyman stuff was really well done. Bayley and Zelina was whatever, and the Shotzi debuted a new look thing was interesting. Pretty deadly, and the Brawling Brutes also a quality match. And the return of Bobby Lashley, so I can't complain there either. But a thumbs-up show, I thought, from the Blue Brand on Friday night. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. SmackDown Lowdown review also coming shortly here to the channel, so check it out. I will probably not have a Collision review tomorrow. I'm going to be out pretty much all day. So just a heads up, I have been doing those in recent weeks. I will very likely not be doing a Collision show review for tomorrow, although tonight looks like a hell of a show with the finals of the men's and women's Owen Hart Cup on Collision and the 2 out of 3 falls match for the AEW World Tag Team titles. So I will be watching, very likely not reviewing in audio form here for the channel tomorrow. Just a heads up. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll catch your ass down the road.